Jenna from the D.I.D system. So the past 2 weeks, I've been extremely dissociative. I've had a new alter emerging, and the time leading up to the initial switch was very difficult. And I had a friend ask, what does that feel like for you? To be dissociative, to switch? And after talking about it with her, I thought, you know, this would make a great video. Then that night, somebody online posted and asked the same thing. What does a switch feel like? But they qualified it as well, saying, how about the differences between O.S.D.D and D.I.D? So since I was originally diagnosed with O.S.D.D and didn't have any amnesia with the alters, and then later had an alter that I did have amnesia with, I think I could answer that question fairly well. And there isn't, the difference really comes to connectivity. The closer a alter is to the alter that's switching out, the easier the switch is. So the more distant they are, the more difficult. And then with D.I.D, if there's amnesia, more difficult still. But I'll start off really on what it feels like to be dissociative. There's a couple different types of dissociation: depersonalization and derealization. The past couple weeks for me, it was largely derealization. The world did not feel real. It was like walking through a fog or thinking through cotton. And if you think about like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 this was having conversations with people. Like I was hearing them. But just what was getting through was a little sketchy. As the alter would come closer to the front, I would have a little bit of depersonalization, which is where you don't quite seem real, or your body. So like my hands wouldn't feel right, and just walking felt weird. And it wasn't a full switch, but it was this, like, this doesn't feel like me sensation. And I think a good analogy for that is if you think of a camera, that you're trying to get to focus on something and it's not quite. That's dissociation. You're like, hey, right there. And it grabs the focus for a second, dink, and then it's right out again. You're like, no, 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 I want you to focus on. That's what it feels like. Just nothing is in focus. Now, for a switch, that's different, because there are disorders that have dissociation that don't have part or switching. And switching, I've said before, I think is really kind of a skill. So when an alter is new at it, it can be very hard for them not only to switch in, but once they're in the front, to switch out of the front. And I've been told by my system that I'm not very good at giving up the front, which probably doesn't help anything. But there's definitely a learning curve involved. Now, how connected you are, once again, with an alter will determine how easy it is. If you're very connected, it can be just as easy as handing a baton off. Ta-da, now you're in the front. Good job, go for it. They're commonly, with switches, are a headache. I read somewhere that that's due to a sudden change of blood flow from one area of the brain to another. Those headaches, in my experience, are more pronounced with an alter, once again, that you're not as connected with. This isn't something that your brain is used to doing, and it's difficult. If it's an alter I usually switch with, no headache, like no whatever. However, there's going to be this cascade of sensations that change with a switch. So alters have different perceptions, different thought patterns, different emotions. And when you switch, it's all of those just completely changing, from the way you see color or feel things or smell things, to the way you feel about things that are going on around you, to the way that you think about things and thought patterns. All of that changes over. And if we go back to the camera analogy, I think it works really well to say that it's like switching camera lenses. So if you are shooting in macro, maybe you're taking a picture of like a strand of hair. That hair is in sharp focus. You can see all the details of it, but everything else is blurry. Now, if you switch lenses, one, there's going to be a moment where things aren't in focus again. That would be the dissociation. But when you get the new lens on there, everything changes. It's still, the camera can be pointed at the exact same thing, but what's in sharp focus is entirely different. If you're going with the regular lens and the hair is still in the camera, it's not going to pick that up at all. Everything in the room's in focus. There's not even a hair there anymore. Dory says hello, by the way. And so how different those lenses are, it can be a very drastic picture as to what's in focus. I still prefer that to the nothing's in focus. So I much would rather a switch than just the dissociative fog. It's really taxing on me. Then, yeah, I just don't like that. With the difference then going to O.S.D.D and D.I.D, you still have the switch, you still have the sensations, you still get the headache. But if you have amnesia with that alter, then you might not have awareness of when it finally clicks over into a new focus. So that's been my experience with switching. I hope that was helpful for everybody, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.